They say silence is a sign of weakness, but I've learned that silence can be the loudest warning. My name is Eleanor Carter, and for most of my life, I believed in people more than I believed in myself. I was the kind of person who gave second chances, who smiled even when others took advantage. I thought kindness was my strength. I never realized it could be turned into a weapon against me until it finally was. For 4 years, I worked at Linden & Co., a marketing firm that felt like my second home. I gave everything I had to that place. Long nights, skipped lunches, endless edits, all to prove I belonged there. I believed that hard work would always speak louder than politics, and that effort would always be rewarded. I couldn't have been more wrong. My manager, Olivia, was the kind of woman who lit up a room when people were watching. She was graceful, charming, always the first to give a compliment in front of a crowd. But when the doors closed, that charm disappeared. She was sharp, cold, and calculating. She loved taking credit for other people's ideas. And I let her, because I thought staying quiet made me professional. I thought patience would pay off. Then came the Silverline campaign, the biggest project our company had ever handled. When Olivia told me I'd be leading it, I felt proud. She smiled at me and said, "You're the best on my team, Elena. I trust you." Those words lit a fire inside me. I wanted to prove her right, to prove to everyone that I was capable. So I gave it everything I had. Days turned into nights, and nights into mornings. I lived at the office. I poured my soul into every concept, every presentation slide, every word. I missed calls from my friends, ignored texts from my mother, and even skipped her birthday dinner because I had to finish a proposal. I told myself it would all be worth it, that hard work always finds its reward. A week before the final presentation, Olivia called me into her office. Her tone was soft, polite, rehearsed. "Eleanor," she said, "you're being moved off the campaign. Upper management wants a new face. Don't take it personally." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. Then I saw the folder on her desk. My folder, my handwriting, my ideas. She sat there with that calm smile, while every piece of my work, every hour, every effort, sat in front of her with her name on it. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened and my stomach felt hollow. She didn't flinch. "You'll get another project soon," she said casually, like she hadn't just stolen everything I'd built. I walked out of her office in a daze. The hallway felt longer than usual. People glanced at me, probably already knew. Rumors travel faster than truth in offices like that. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen, unable to focus on anything. That evening, I walked home in the rain without an umbrella. I didn't even notice I was soaked until I reached my apartment door. When I looked at my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were swollen, my face pale, my hands shaking. I had spent years trying to prove I was good enough, and in a single moment, someone had taken that from me. But as I stood there, something inside me shifted. The pain didn't fade. It transformed. It hardened into something sharper, stronger. I realized that betrayal doesn't destroy you all at once. It teaches you, molds you, and shows you exactly who people are and who you are. That night, I made a silent promise to myself. I wouldn't let this end with me being the victim. I wouldn't let them write my story for me. Olivia thought she could silence me by taking everything I built, but she underestimated what silence really means. They thought I was weak, but my silence wasn't surrender. It was the calm before the storm. And when I finally spoke, it wouldn't be with words. It would be with actions that no one could ignore. The next few weeks were unbearable. Olivia's presentation was flawless, and the boardroom loved every second of it. She walked out of that meeting with a promotion, a fat bonus, and the kind of praise that should have been mine. The office clapped for her. Even I did. I smiled because that's what you do when everyone's watching. But inside, something broke. I told myself to move on, to focus on the next project. But the universe wasn't done testing me. Within days, whispers started circling the office. Someone told HR that I had leaked the Silverline campaign files to a competitor. A complete lie, but a convenient one. Suddenly, I wasn't just invisible. I was suspicious. HR called me in for questioning. 3 people sat across from me, with their serious faces and polite voices. They asked if I had shared company data, if I had used my personal email for work, if I had sent any files outside the system. I kept saying no, but the more I defended myself, the guiltier I sounded. By the end of it, I felt smaller than I had ever felt. They told me there'd be an internal review. Their words were soft, but their eyes had already judged me. When I returned to my desk, people avoided looking at me. Some moved their chairs when I passed by. The same co-workers who once asked for my advice now spoke in whispers I wasn't meant to hear. I tried to eat lunch in the break room one afternoon, but the silence that fell when I walked in was unbearable. From that day, I started eating alone at my desk. That's when I realized the truth. Olivia wasn't satisfied with stealing my work. She wanted to erase me completely. Taking my ideas had given her success, but destroying my reputation would keep me from ever fighting back. It wasn't enough for her to win. She needed me to lose. The more I thought about it, the clearer everything became. She had planned this. Every step, every smile, every compliment. All of it had been a setup. I was the stepping stone she used to climb higher. And now, she was making sure I stayed buried beneath her feet. One afternoon, I looked up from my screen and caught her watching me from across the hallway. She wasn't even pretending anymore. That smirk on her face, calm, confident, knowing, was the final push I needed. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I stopped feeling helpless. I stopped feeling scared. I started thinking. When I got home that night, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I scrolled through every email, every chat, every version of my project files. I read until my eyes burned. And then I noticed something. Olivia had used company systems to transfer documents, forward attachments, and rename files. She was clever, yes, but not careful. Every digital action left a trail. Every stolen file had a timestamp. Every lie had proof buried in the data. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was focus. I started saving everything. Copies of drafts, screenshots of timestamps, forwarded emails, even internal memos. I organized them quietly, carefully, like puzzle pieces. Each small discovery gave me a new kind of strength. I didn't want revenge for the sake of it. I wasn't planning to scream or cause chaos. I wanted justice, the kind that doesn't shout, but makes the ground tremble when it arrives. Olivia had built her career on lies, and I was going to let the truth expose her. That night, as the city lights blinked through my window, I felt strangely calm. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't drowning in pain or anger. I was focused, determined. My silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was preparation. They thought I was finished, that they had pushed me out of the story. But I was just turning the page. The nights grew longer, the silence heavier, but I didn't stop. I sat in front of my laptop for hours, eyes aching from the glow of the screen, chasing every lead, every trace Olivia left behind. It became a ritual. Coffee gone cold beside me, endless folders, archived emails, encrypted attachments. Each click pulled me deeper into her web of lies, and I refused to stop until I found something that would expose her. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I wasn't chasing peace anymore. I was hunting truth. Then just past midnight one night, it happened. Buried inside an old backup folder was an email, time-stamped, unaltered, and damning. Olivia had forwarded my original presentation deck to her personal email address 2 days before she told me I was off the project. My name was still in the file's metadata. every slide marked with my signature formatting and draft watermark. It was all there, undeniable proof that she had stolen my work. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard, it felt like it might break through my ribs. I imagined the confrontation, the look on her face, when she realized I had her cornered. But that thought faded as quickly as it came. Acting now would be foolish. No, I needed patience. If I'd learned anything from this mess, it was that timing mattered. Revenge without control was just chaos. I wanted more than revenge. I wanted justice that hit so precisely she'd never recover. So, I waited. Days turned into weeks, and I played my part flawlessly. I greeted Olivia with polite smiles, attended meetings, even laughed at her jokes. She thought I was defeated, that I'd accepted my downfall. Let her believe that. Her arrogance was my camouflage. I'd already started building my case in silence, one file at a time. Then the perfect opportunity presented itself. The company announced a major investor meeting, one that could determine the firm's entire future. And, predictably, Olivia was chosen to lead it. It was poetic. She'd be at the center of attention again, her lies polished and ready for display. But this time, I wouldn't be a silent spectator. This was where everything would change. I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed someone with access. Someone who could retrieve what I couldn't. That's when I turned to Ethan, the head of IT. He was known for his integrity. Someone who had quietly seen every injustice in the office, but never spoken about it. I caught him late one evening, the server room humming with the low buzz of machines. I told him enough to make him understand, careful not to reveal too much. He watched me for a while, expression unreadable. "You're not the first person she's used," he said finally, "but you might be the first with the courage to fight back." When I told him what I needed, the system audit logs from the day Olivia forwarded that email, he hesitated only a moment before agreeing. "Be smart, Elena," he warned. "If this blows up, she won't hesitate to drag you down with her." The next night, Ethan slipped a small flash drive into my hand. "Everything you need," he said quietly. I thanked him, though words felt small for what he'd risked. At home, I turned the flash drive over in my palm, feeling its weight, its power. This tiny piece of metal held every secret Olivia thought she had buried. Digital footprints, timestamps, copies of stolen work. I connected it to my laptop, and the files opened like a confession. Everything was there, perfectly preserved. Proof that couldn't be denied or twisted. For months, I had felt powerless. I had cried in silence, questioned my worth, even blamed myself for trusting her. But holding that evidence in my hand, I felt something shift. The fear that had lived inside me was gone. All that remained was clarity, sharp and cold. They had called me weak, naive, too kind for my own good. But they never understood that silence doesn't mean surrender. It means observation. It means strategy. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits patiently in the dark, sharpening itself. And now, my silence had become my weapon. The morning air felt thick with tension. The office was alive with energy. The kind that comes before something big. Something that could change everything. Olivia moved through the crowd like she owned the place. Her smile bright, her laughter practiced. She wore confidence like armor, greeting every executive, every intern, every passing glance with charm. No one saw through her. No one except me. I sat quietly at my desk, the flash drive beside my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. For weeks, I had replayed this moment in my mind. Every step, every detail, every outcome. There was no turning back now. My plan wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about truth. I opened a new email and began typing. My words were calm, simple, deliberate. I attached every piece of evidence. The original campaign deck, the email she'd sent to herself, the timestamps proving the theft. Then I wrote one line that said everything I needed it to say. Sometimes loyalty looks like silence, but silence shouldn't be mistaken for guilt. I stared at those words for a moment, then hit send. It felt like setting something free. Not anger, not spite, but the truth that had been buried for too long. I closed my laptop and leaned back. Whatever came next, I was ready for it. By midday, the office energy shifted. Whispers started near the break room and rippled across departments. HR was seen rushing into a meeting with the CEO. Olivia noticed, of course, but she brushed it off, pretending it didn't bother her. She was too used to being untouchable, too confident in her game. Still, I saw the flicker of unease in her eyes when she caught sight of people glancing her way. When it was time for the investor presentation, everyone gathered in the conference hall. The atmosphere was sharp, expectant. I slipped into the back row, blending into the crowd. Olivia stood at the front, poised and radiant, her voice steady as she began her pitch. I'd heard those words before. They were mine after all, but now they sounded hollow, rehearsed. She clicked through the slides with elegance, gesturing at graphs and taglines I had crafted. I kept my eyes on her, watching for the moment everything would shift. Mr. Linden, the CEO, sat near the front, quiet but observant. His face gave nothing away, but I could tell he was waiting for something. Then, as Olivia advanced to the final segment, his voice broke through the room. "Slivia," he said evenly, "before you continue, could you explain why this presentation was sent from your personal email account 2 days before our internal review?" The words cut through the air like a blade. Olivia froze, her confident expression faltering. I'm not sure what you mean," she stammered, her eyes darting toward him. Mr. Linden gestured to his assistant, who stepped forward holding printed pages. "These are verified system logs," she said calmly. "They show that this deck was sent from your private account. It's the same version presented today." The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the hum of the projector seemed to fade. Olivia's mouth opened and closed as she scrambled for words. "There must be some misunderstanding," she tried, her voice shaking. I might have backed it up for review." Mr. Linden didn't respond. He just watched her. The investors exchanged uneasy glances. The polished presentation, the confidence, the image she had built. It all began to crack in real time. The charm that had once drawn people in now looked desperate, almost pitiful. From the back of the room, I stayed still, my heart steady. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was a strange calm, like I was finally breathing after months underwater. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just watched as the truth unraveled her, the way she had once unraveled me. When the meeting ended, Olivia avoided everyone's eyes. She gathered her papers with trembling hands and left the room without a word. People whispered as she passed, their admiration replaced by suspicion. I stayed seated for a while, letting the weight of the moment settle. This wasn't over, not yet, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel powerless. I had done what I came to do. I had let the truth speak for itself. The office was tense and silent, the kind of silence that buzzed in your ears. No one spoke above a whisper. Everyone could feel it. The fall was happening in real time. Inside the conference room, behind the glass walls, I could see Olivia standing across from Mr. Linden, her face drained of color, her hands trembling as she tried to defend the indefensible. Papers were spread across the table. Printed emails, time-stamped records, file histories. Every lie she'd built her career on was now laid bare in black and white. Her voice cracked through the glass, faint but audible. "This is a misunderstanding. But her words stopped when Mr. Linden placed a finger on one of the printed pages. "You forwarded confidential work to your personal account 2 days before, removing Elena from the project. That's not a misunderstanding, Olivia. For a second, she stood frozen, blinking fast, as if hoping someone would interrupt, someone would save her, but no one did. The people who once admired her now avoided her gaze. The silence in the office wasn't sympathy, it was judgment. I watched from my desk, not moving, not reacting. I didn't need to. The truth was doing all the work for me. When the door opened, the HR director walked out first, followed by Mr. Linden. His expression was unreadable, but his tone was calm and final. Effective immediately, Olivia is suspended until further notice. Olivia followed them, her posture stiff, her confidence shattered. She tried to speak, tried to laugh it off like she always did, but her voice trembled. "Please, this isn't what you think," she started. But Mr. Linden didn't look at her again. 2 HR officers escorted her toward the elevators. She clutched her bag tightly, her knuckles white. As she passed by, the same employees who once cheered her now turned away. The sharp echo of her heels faded down the hallway, and with it, the illusion she had built. I sat there, watching it unfold, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel triumph, just quiet. A deep, calm stillness that settled inside me. Revenge wasn't about watching someone collapse. It was about standing where you were once broken and realizing you'd risen above it. I had fought not to destroy her, but to reclaim myself. That night, I went home to my small apartment. The city lights flickered through my window, painting soft patterns across the floor. I made tea, sat on the couch, and watched the steam rise. There was no celebration, no satisfaction, just peace. The kind that comes after months of chaos. I had finally taken back control of my story. A week later, I got a message from Mr. Linden's assistant, asking me to come to his office. I went in expecting a formality, maybe an acknowledgement of what had happened. But when I sat down, his tone surprised me. "Eleanor," he began, "I owe you an apology." He looked tired, sincere. "I should have seen it sooner. You were the one who carried this company through that campaign. Your work speaks for itself." He handed me a folder across the desk. Inside were documents, the official reinstatement of my position, and a promotion offer. "From now on," he said, "your name will be on every project you lead. You'll be heading our creative strategy department." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Months of humiliation, of doubt, of sleepless nights had led to this quiet, almost understated moment of justice. I thanked him softly, not out of obligation, but from somewhere deeper, gratitude mixed with relief. When I stepped out of his office, people looked at me differently. Some smiled, some nodded respectfully. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was finally seen for who I was. Not the weak one, not the victim, but the woman who refused to be erased. 2 weeks later, the Silverline campaign launched. My campaign. It spread across social media, praised by critics and clients alike. Seeing my name on the credits, hearing people talk about my ideas with admiration, it felt surreal. It wasn't just recognition, it was validation. Proof that I had earned my place, and that no one could take it from me again. As for Olivia, she vanished. Her office was cleared out within days, her name removed from every project. Rumor had it she left the city altogether. I didn't search for her, didn't care where she ended up, because by the time justice reached her, I was already far beyond her shadow. I didn't hate her anymore. In some strange way, she had taught me the most valuable lesson of all. That silence isn't weakness, and kindness isn't submission. Real strength doesn't shout. It endures. It rebuilds. And in the quiet aftermath of it all, I realized I hadn't destroyed her world. I had simply rebuilt mine. The campaign's success filled the air with excitement, but inside, I felt a quiet stillness. The billboards, the interviews, the messages of praise. They all came pouring in, yet none of it gave me the rush I'd expected. It was strange. almost hollow, as if I had already moved beyond the need for validation. I'd spent months chasing recognition, and when it finally arrived, it didn't define me anymore. What mattered now was what I had learned in the silence that followed. Most nights I stayed in the office long after everyone left. I'd sit near the window, the glow of the city stretching out below, and think about how far I'd come from the person who used to apologize for taking up space. I used to think that being kind meant being quiet, that the less I spoke, the more people would respect me. But that was the lie I had been taught to live by. I realize now that kindness without boundaries isn't kindness at all. It's surrender. When I looked back at the chaos that had unfolded, I didn't feel hate or bitterness, just understanding. Olivia had taken what she wanted because she thought I'd never fight back, and for a long time she was right. I let others write my story while I waited in the background, hoping someone would notice the truth. But the truth doesn't need to be noticed. It just needs to be revealed. After everything came to light, people in the office started treating me differently. Some avoided me, unsure of what to say. Others tried to make small talk, pretending they hadn't turned away when I was at my lowest. I didn't call them out, but I didn't forget either. I learned that silence can protect your dignity more than any confrontation ever could. You don't owe explanations to people who only listen when it benefits them. One day during an interview, a reporter asked if I had planned the entire thing. The timing, the exposure, the downfall. I smiled slightly and said, "No, I just stopped being silent." That sentence spread like wildfire online. People quoted it as if it were a lesson, but to me, it was a confession. I hadn't plotted revenge. I'd simply chosen not to let fear make my decisions anymore. I found a strange peace in that realization. Revenge hadn't consumed me. It had freed me. I didn't win by destroying Olivia. I won by reclaiming myself. The satisfaction didn't come from seeing her punished, but from watching my own name appear on something I built. It reminded me that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, and precise. The kind that doesn't need applause to be real. Weeks later, as the chaos died down, I started mentoring a few new employees. They reminded me of who I once was. Eager, trusting, desperate to prove themselves. I told them what I wish someone had told me. Never let your silence protect the wrong person. They nodded, maybe not fully understanding, but one day they would. In moments of stillness, I thought about Olivia, not with anger. That feeling had long faded, but with clarity. She was a mirror that reflected everything I needed to confront in myself: fear, doubt, and misplaced trust. Sometimes, it takes a betrayal to rebuild your strength on your own terms. Now, when I walk into a room, I no longer shrink myself. I don't over-explain or seek approval. My voice carries differently, steady, sure, and unapologetic. People notice it, but I don't need them to. The real victory isn't being heard by others. It's finally listening to yourself. That night, sitting by the window again, I looked at my reflection in the glass. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who once cried in the break room, wondering where she went wrong. She looked calm, grounded, and untouchable. The world outside kept moving, lights flickering and fading, but I stayed there for a while, just breathing. The revenge, the chaos, the exposure. They were just steps on the path to something bigger. What I'd found was peace, the kind that doesn't demand attention, the kind that whispers instead of shouts. The truth had spoken for itself, and I didn't need to say another word. Now, when I look back, I don't see betrayal anymore. I see transformation. What once shattered me ended up rebuilding me into someone stronger, sharper, and wiser. The pain that once felt unbearable became the reason I learned how to stand tall on my own. Every scar I carry tells a story, not of defeat, but of survival. Every lie I endured became proof that I could rise again. no matter who tried to bury me. I used to believe strength had to be loud, that it came with shouting, proving, or fighting to be heard. But real strength doesn't scream. It endures. It whispers, quietly but firmly. I'm still here. There was a time when I gave too much of myself away. My time, my trust, my peace, just to be accepted. I wanted people to see my goodness, to value my loyalty. But I learned the hard way that not everyone sees kindness as strength. Some see it as an invitation to take advantage. And when they do, they convince you that your silence makes you weak. But silence can be powerful when you choose it. It's not submission, it's self-control. It's choosing not to lower yourself to the level of those who tried to break you. After everything that happened, I stopped chasing validation. The apology from the company, the recognition, even the praise. It all meant less than I thought it would. What truly mattered was that I could finally look in the mirror and recognize myself again. I no longer saw a woman who needed to prove her worth to anyone. I saw someone who had already earned it through resilience and grace. People sometimes ask if I ever forgave Olivia. The truth is, forgiveness came naturally once I stopped letting her actions define my story. Holding on to anger would have kept me tied to her, and I refused to let that happen. My victory wasn't in watching her fall. It was in walking away free. Revenge gave me justice, but forgiveness gave me peace. There were quiet moments afterward. Late nights in my apartment, the city lights glowing beyond the window. When I'd think about how everything unfolded, I didn't feel bitterness anymore. Just clarity. Every betrayal, every cruel word, every unfair moment, they were all stepping stones to the person I was becoming. Sometimes life strips you down to nothing, not to punish you, but to rebuild you from a stronger foundation. If someone had told me years ago that this version of me existed, calm, confident, unafraid, I wouldn't have believed them. But that's what healing does. It changes you in ways that words can't describe. It teaches you that silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. That kindness isn't weakness. It's control. That revenge isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's evolution. Now, when I meet people who remind me of who I used to be, too trusting, too eager to please, I tell them one thing: never let your silence protect the wrong person. Speak when it matters, and walk away when it doesn't. Don't waste your energy proving yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Let your growth be your response. Let your peace be your proof. In the end, I realized that the greatest revenge isn't making someone else pay. It's rebuilding yourself so completely that they can no longer touch you. It's finding happiness so real that their memory can't reach it. It's standing in your own light after they tried to dim it. That's power. Quiet, unstoppable, undeniable power. So no, I don't see betrayal anymore when I think back. I see a lesson written in pain. A reminder that even in my lowest moments, I was being prepared for something greater. Because real strength doesn't roar, it whispers. Softly, confidently. I survived, and I rose higher.